Hey all, Brendan here, aka Cliffjumper, and I'm not exactly sure where this update is going to fall in line with our videos that we're doing, but I am overflowing in projects. Some of them are intentional, like the supercharger project for the VR6 Corrado, which is on hold just because of, well, time constraints. Time constraints are the main issue that I have right now, but literally every single vehicle that I'm dealing with needs work of some sort. Some of these things are more pressing matters, like getting them to pass smog in a certain amount of time. So our Toyota Sequoia has a wonderful issue with the evap recovery system, which is conveniently up inside here, which I did film a bunch of stuff on. But there's a valve in there that I have to replace. In order to replace the valve, I have to remove the spare tire under here. And I have discovered that the mechanism for lowering the spare tire is not working because, well, why would it? So I have to deal with figuring out how to get the spare tire lowered so I can replace the valve so we can get this all smog worthy and registered and all that fun stuff. The R32 is under this cover here. And the R32, I don't think I covered this in a video. A couple years ago, I replaced the thermostat. And in process of replacing the thermostat, I was following a set of instructions, which were done in very good faith by one of our friends here on the internets. And he did not know when he was filming his how to replace a thermostat series that it had already been done, and there was a very crucial step that was left out, which involved a wiring harness that goes clipping into a very important piece that you remove while you're doing the thermostat on this. And of course, since I didn't know that step and it's not reflected in the factory repair manual, because why would it be, I broke the harness inside here, which has meant that my coolant temperature sensor for the gauge cluster has not worked in about 2 years. Fortunately, the coolant sensor for the ECU works just fine, so it's running great, but I don't have that gauge cluster thing working. But because it is all tied together, when I go to get it smogged, I found that there was getting an error code saying implausible signal from the coolant sensor, and that was not letting it smog, and that was a giant pain in the butt. But long story short, I have to replace the coolant sensor pigtail harness inside here, which is going to involve pulling the whole front end of the car off to get to that. The Corrado is sitting here, and it has just been eagerly waiting for me to get in and finish the supercharger, and I'm eagerly awaiting doing that myself. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But in the process of this, I'm replacing the motor mounts, and I have found that the rear motor mount is stuck on this one, the original factory one. So I'm going to need a second pair of hands. I think I'm going to reach out to our friends at Garbage Garage and see if I can get Jeff and Mike down here to help me, and we'll manage this thing, get that motor mount sorted out. And I do have the bolt that I need for the supercharger, so hopefully we'll be able to get the supercharger installed in the next couple weeks and get that on the road. Under here is my dad's Fiat Spider, and I really need to give you a better walk around of the Fiat when it's uncovered and show you all gory details of the work that needs to be done to this vehicle. But my dad bought this new in 1973, and it was the Sunday car. It was his baby. I inherited it after he was killed in the line of duty about 25 years ago. And it's been driven a little bit here and there in parades and things to honor his memory, but as it's aged, and now we're at 48 years, it is needing a lot of work. So just a little peek under here, and you can see there is some pretty significant rust and deterioration. And yeah, so there's a bit of work that needs to be done, in addition to the fact that I removed the mechanical fuel pump that was a pain in the butt, and I'm installing a electric fuel pump. I need to run one more wire. I could not find a reliable source of switched power under the hood, so I'm pulling a source of switched power from under the dash, running it through the firewall, and that should give us our reliable relay to run that. And then we come to, well, this isn't even the end of the line, but physically the end of the line of this line of cars. So this is Joan Jetta. This is destined to be my daughter's car, and I'm sure just looking around it, it's rough. It's rough. It needs a lot. So the paint is pretty faded for a car with 260,000 miles. The headlights are toast. I'm going to replace those. There's cosmetic stuff. There's suspension stuff this needs. There's wiring stuff. There is a bunch of stuff. Like the hatch wiring in here is worn out. So when you drive faster than 15 miles an hour, and Volkswagen does its auto lock thing, you go faster than 15, all the doors lock, and in that moment it unlocks and pops the trunk. Pretty annoying if you're driving down the street, so it's kind of a safety issue. We need to replace the wiring harness in the trunk, and then we need to go through the brakes, make sure that those are bled. There are some other wiring issues in here. Fortunately, my daughter still has some years before she'll be driving it herself, but I'd like to be able to drive it as a daily driver and just make sure that it's still working well so that when I pass it on to her, it's in good shape. And then of course there's my son's Jetta, which right now is working just fine, but it does need suspension work because it's 18 years old, and 18-year-old suspension components are worn out. So it's not here because he's at school and he's driving it there, and there you go. But that's kind of the lowdown update of everything that's going on here. And if you're wondering why I seem to bounce from project to project to project to project every week, it's because, you know, I've got ADHD and I'll kind of bounce from one thing to another, but also some things require working in a shorter amount of time than others. So depending on the requirements of what I need to have working at any given time, that is what determines what I'm going to be working on. And my wife's car is obviously pretty important to make sure that that is smogged and working. So I'm going to be focusing on that this coming week, making sure that that's up to snuff. And then I will turn my attention back to the other cars. And there you go. That's the update. So thanks for hanging in with me here as I deal with all these projects. Hopefully some of them are helpful for you as I figure out how to fix stuff and show you. And if not, at least I hope it's mildly entertaining. I hope you'll consider subscribing and maybe even sharing this video. You can take pity on my poor soul as I deal with these things. So thanks for tuning in, and let's see what we get to today, right? All right.